of the corridor, and didn't he have anything better to do with his time? The anger faded and died until it was replaced by numbness. Ash bit down on his teeth, ducked his head, and walked in the opposite direction. It was a cold, nasty morning. A misty rain hung in the air. Ash knelt in the dirt beside a stone bench as he patted a new layer of soil. Each flower, every plant had its own energy. The wilting hydrangea there, for example. Ash could feel that it had a calm, slow, rhythmic vibration, perhaps an acceptance of death, transforming from one state of the physical into the next. Its petals were shriveled and brown. Ash held it in his palm as he looked over his shoulder. The campus was shrouded in a thick yellow-gray haze, stone buildings disappearing in the fog. The students and professors were in class, no one else in sight. Ash looked back at the flower and shut his eyes. He imagined the hydrangea in full bloom, pictured in his mind every detail, from the velvety softness of the petals to the dew glistening and dripping onto his hand. Alteration was Tier 3, but it wouldn't require much alchemic power for something so small. Energy sparked inside of him, a flint lighting flame. He felt the heat grow under his brown skin, spreading through him. "You don't have much love for this job, I see." Ash stood and whirled around, heart hammering. He let go of the flower and dropped it to the dirt. It was in full bloom, just as he'd imagined, dew on his hand. Frank stood behind him in his usual workwear overalls, hands in his pockets. The man was almost 7 feet tall, but he snuck around like a cat. Ash couldn't be convinced that Frank wasn't also secretly practicing alchemy and hadn't simply materialized out of thin air. Ash gave what he hoped was a charming, sheepish grin worthy of forgiveness. That grin, plus his floppy brown curls and big brown eyes, had gotten him out of trouble before once or twice. "Saw that, did you?" Frank was often in a foul mood, but it was made even fouler now. "You must not have any love for your freedom, either," he said. "I didn't know anyone was here." But even Ash knew that was a sorry excuse. "Maybe you could try explaining that to the Kendrick," Frank said, not even the hint of a smile on his face. Ash sometimes felt that Frank took it upon himself to be a father-like figure a little too much. "You wouldn't call the Reds on me, would you?" Ash asked. "You'd be down an assistant." "I made do without you before," Frank said. "I'll be just fine without you again." The two stood in silence for one long moment, staring each other down. Ash was used to being on his own, and he wasn't very fond of obeying anyone. But Ash needed this job. And besides, Ash appreciated Frank and his gruff straightforwardness. It was a breath of fresh air in a place like this. "Sorry," Ash said. "It won't happen again." Frank eyed Ash as if he wanted to continue his lecture, but thankfully he only gave a nod before he carried on across the lawn, disappearing into the haze. That's often how the man operated, like an unaware energy that had forgotten it was no longer alive, walking from one dimension and into the next. Ash sighed, dusting his hands off on his cotton overalls, and pushed the wobbling barrow in the opposite direction, back toward the greenhouse. Ash had been technically hired as a domestic of the college to fold sheets and wash dishes in the kitchen, but Frank, for some unknown reason, had taken the boy under his wing in the past few months, asking for his assistance with various groundskeeping tasks. Even if Ash was annoyed at the man, he was also grateful. He preferred to be outside, hands in the dirt, than in the shadows of the college's corridors, hiding from the gaggles of laughing students and the professors with their cold stares. It wasn't quite that they eyed Ash like he was mud tracked onto expensive rugs, or that they insulted him in the halls, though that did happen too. A whispered sneer about the state of his clothes and hair. And oh, yes, the one girl who had laughingly said that Ash would be cute if he wasn't so short and didn't smell like fertilizer. It was more that, for the most part, they didn't even look at him at all. It was as if Ash was invisible to them, or that he didn't exist. That he wasn't even worthy of enough attention to show disgust, let alone respect. Ash had applied to Lancaster. Just a year before, he had saved enough sterling from his part-time job at the docks to send off an application and take the entrance exams. He'd worked hard for years before that, hours of studying alone at night, bent over texts because he'd convinced himself that he could have a shot at becoming a student of the college. Any and all financial need would have been met if he'd been accepted, and he would have greatly increased his chances.